Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing great. I would like to welcome all the existing channel followers as well as those who are new to this channel. A very warm welcome. Also, please hit the like, share, and subscribe button, and also hit the bell icon for getting notified for more such videos. Now, in our last video, what I did was I shared with you a demo on Sterling File Gateway, which is the managed file transfer offering built on top of Sterling Integrator. And what are the benefit of using Sterling File Gateway, right? I hope that video was useful to all of you who are either working in Sterling File Gateway very recently or uh, wanted to know more about Sterling File Gateway. Having said that, in today's video, I wanted to do a fun exercise. I got this from one of the folks who commented in one of my video that can you maybe help with some use case or scenario based interview questions that can be asked by the interviewer for someone who has applied for EDI or Sterling B2B integrator job roles. So what I did, I hope you all are familiar recently with the generative AI hype about all the chat GPTs or Copilot or other uh, AI related chat interfaces that we have where you can ask a lot of interesting questions and get responses to it, right? Now, with that in mind, what I have done is I went in, right, rather than making myself some scenario use case based question, I thought let me try one of the GPT type interface and ask with some probable EDI slash Sterling B2B integrator questions in respect to like any use case or scenario based. And let me see if I am like the interviewee and have applied for that. And if I am asked that question, how would be my approach to respond to those kind of questions, right? So with that, let me quickly share my screen. So here is what I have done. I am using something called perplexity.ai, which is a AI chat interface. And I just went in and I asked a simple question, which is help me with some scenario based interview questions on EDI and Sterling B2B integrate. And now, what it has done is that this large language model or generative AI chat bot has went in and gave couple of areas of some of the scenario based questions. One is on the EDI implementation scenarios, one is on the Sterling B2B integrator scenarios, right? So, and some of the advanced scenarios. Now, uh, I can touch upon few of those in today's video because, or else, if I'm able to like trying to answer all of them, it might be a very lengthy video, and I don't want to make that lengthy for all of you to like be able to consume it in small bits and pieces, right? Uh, Now, if you are familiar with STAR methodology, right, this is one of the very common mechanism or methodology or framework that at least the big companies, right, like we say FANG companies, which is typically Facebook, Apple, um, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, right, Meta, those kind of companies are using in their interview, and I think some of the other companies, right, are also have also started adopting this STAR methodology, which is typically like any question that they ask, asking a close-ended question of like, okay, yes, no answer. Okay, have you worked on Sterling Integrator? Okay, yes. Have you worked on mapping? Yes, and all that. They have created this framework, which is STAR methodology, which is like they ask a question and you as an interview has to respond in a star methodology, which is you have to say the situation first, which is S, then what was the task, right, that you identified, right, out of that situation to solve that problem, right? What are the actions that you took once you have identified the tasks, okay, and what was the result. So that's kind of the star methodology. That way the interviewer actually gets an insight of, okay, this person or this interview has really had good experience, okay, and sharing a true story or an experience that he has in his prior projects or companies, and be able to evaluate it based on his response, right? It has been very helpful, right, to like identify people who has fake uh, resumes, right, fake profiles versus the real people, okay, who has really good experience in that particular technology or product, whatever the job role is uh, actually they're hiring for, right? Now, let's see the first question over here, right? If this is the question that was asked to you, okay, physical, it says complex integration project, okay. So it says describe a complex EDI integration project you led. What challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them? Right now, here, rather than asking a very specific targeted question on a specific mapping or business process or Sterling integrator admin related question, question, they went little wider, right? Now you have to like either instead of zooming in, you have to zoom out, right? Think from a higher level perspective. Okay, that if you has uh, worked as a team lead, for example, or an architect or a senior developer, have you come across this kind of scenario where you have really led a project which was very complex, and what were the challenges that you faced and how did you overcome, right? So if I was in your place, and if I was asked this question just right now when I'm thinking of this question, I might have more examples to share or more stories to share. But if I just hear this, I might say, if I have like, let's wear my mapping hat, right? As a mapper, is it a business process developer? Uh, if I can talk few words on this, I have to. I will say, yeah, there was a so what you have to say. The first thing is situation. What was the situation? So you can say, I was like, you don't have to name the company, name the project, name the client, right? You're not supposed to be. Okay, you can create a fictitious company name. Okay, just to replace the real company name, right? You can do that. That you can mention like they definitely would know, okay, whether you are working in some other companies, right? Based on your resume, like you might be working for CTS, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, HCL, all those kind of companies, right? So you can, they already know that. So you don't have to hide those things, but you don't want to share any client specific names and all that, right? That's kind of proprietary information and copyrighted information that you shouldn't share outside your company, right? That's kind of the best practice. So what I would do say, oh yeah, when I was working in my prior company HCL, I came across a project. It's a e-commerce company in the retail sector, and they were migrating from a different integration product that they had, a middleware product. They were using web methods, and they wanted to move to Sterling B2B integrator. So whatever transformations, translations in respect to like converting from one format to another format, they wanted to do that same in Sterling integrator, but there was no, like, it was completely like there was no mapping requirement specifications other than the existing file format and the targeted file format, some examples of the input and the output format. And we were given this project where we have to actually build our own mapping requirement specification, looking into both the input and the output file, how it is being translated for different transaction types. And then after we create the mapping requirement specification, we have to get it evaluated, approved by the business analyst who was on the team, and as well as the client. Once we get the sign off for each and every transaction types, we then had to go and start doing the mapping, and we have to then start doing testing like in respect to unit testing, um, end-to-end testing, integration testing, and then you have to deploy that in our Sterling integrator. So that was the overall uh, project that I was leading as a team lead, and it was very complex because the reason is there was literally no documentation available for us to get started. right? So here what I've done, I've explained the situation. I've explained what was the project overall, right? And then the next thing is I've kind of hinted towards a little bit of task, like what we have to do, right? So I've kind of alluded to the task, the second section of it in the STAR methodology, right? And then the next thing is the action is where you define, okay, what did you as a team lead or even as a developer, okay, what did you do in your role from an action standpoint? What are the steps that you took, right, to create the mapping requirement specifications? Are there were there any challenges when you were doing that? How did you overcome that, right? And how did you come up with the mapping requirement specification within a specified timeline, right? So you have to explain all that, right? And then once I've mentioned all the actions that you took, what was the result, right? Like, was the project successful? Were you able to deliver all the maps on time? Was there any delay? Was there any escalations, right? What was the result? Like, did it go smoothly? Did the go live got pushed out, right? Things like that. So you can mention all those kind of information in a story format, right? Okay, and say about the results. And there might be like, and the results section, okay, should have some kind of data points. It should not be like a paragraph that you're saying, right? You should have some specific data points, right? Like in respect to, oh, the project was supposed to be done within 3 months. We were able to achieve that, okay, or we delayed for certain areas, okay, that got like that made the project push out to 2 months, right? Like you need to like, I'm just giving example. I'm not just saying the real thing, but what I'm trying to say is, or we had to add some additional developers on the team, right? Or you had to work overtime, right, over the weekends, right? Things like that. So you need to mention some statistics, some metrics, right? Not just like in words, but some specific numbers. That way, the interviewer, okay, gets confidence. No, this person actually has like experience working in this kind of like complex integration project. He knows the numbers, right? He has the data points in mind. He has the story, right? He's shared the information in a star methodology for him to be able to like grasp the entire thing, right? And then be able to evaluate that interview, right? So always try to answer, right? I've always seen like in this methodology, star methodology, uh, and it has really like a good story that you can create out of it, right? Like so that's kind of where I would try to answer that way. For example, let's say over here, right, in the Sterling B2B integrator scenarios, there is a question. If I see over here, it says under performance optimization, right? It says your Sterling B2B integrator database size is continually growing and impacting performance. What would be your approach to diagnose and resolve this issue, right? So that's kind of an admin related question, right? So people who has experience in like managing, maintaining Sterling B2B integrated environment, it is geared towards them. And like if you see, he has given some like reason of asking the question. Like it says, there is question test to understanding of the performance issues that typically you can encounter in Sterling B2B integrator. Also, like you should be able to explain how you have investigated the database growth issues, causes, right? How you have implemented the different maintenance procedures, what are those optimized business processes, configure proper purging policies. So it's kind of given some hints for you, okay, but not necessarily you will have those hints right in front of you when you are actually going into interview. So this is just for you to prep for the interview question, right? So typically, like when this kind of question is asked, they are trying to evaluate, do you know the intricacies of like the Sterling B2B integrator performance problems? Like what are the typical reasons that a Sterling B2B integrator would perform badly? One of the primary reason is database size, right? There are different, so you need to explain, right? If you have really encountered this, or you can be very like frank, and you can be very honest saying, to be very honest, I have no experience in this kind of use case or scenario. Okay, I have not encountered in my career. Be very honest. What they typically do, the interviewer, they acknowledge that fact, they respect it, your honesty, and they move on to a next question, which might be relevant for you and your like. And then what they do is that the way they prepare your questions, right, is basically looking into your resume. right? They kind of skip through your resume before any interview for their preparation, and they look into some of the areas that you mentioned, that those are your strong areas or strong experience, and they try to then carve out some of the questions from there. So be very careful. Okay, just like from creating your CV or resume standpoint, don't just like copy paste thing, like all kind of transactions, EDI standards, Excel, Edifact, Tradocoms, XMLs, everything from some other place. Don't just mention all the things under Sterling B2B Integrator if you really do not have any experience in those areas. Like be very, very honest in put like making sure resume okay speaks about you, right? It shouldn't be more than what you have worked upon, because if you have done that, like copy pasting from somewhere else and putting all this just to make your resume shiny for an interviewer to consider you for interview, you are in the wrong place. I'm telling you, because very quickly okay the interviewer okay would be able to identify whether you are faking or you are really have experience working on that. So be very cognizant about making sure resume is actually what you are, right? So be very careful of that. Now, coming back to this question, right? Okay, typically what interviewer is expecting what are the typical reasons that Sterling B2B integrator will have performance issues? Why database is very important for Sterling integrator? You should know that. What are the tables right within database that you should be like monitoring from a like capacity planning standpoint, also like purging the records, right? What are the there are some tables which are high volume, like there are some transaction tables, there are some tables okay where you just store some data for and they change very like rarely, right? Okay, so there are like, so you need to be aware of those kind of different tables like archive info, right? Like trans data, data flow, right? There are few tables okay which you are very high volume tables within Sterling, so you should be aware of those. What are the typical database like maintenance procedures, right, that you should be aware of. Some of the reports that you should run often and maybe get an email notification for like those reports to be able to look into okay whether there are some tables where you are having some stale records, right? Some so you need to be aware of those kind of scenarios. Also, how do you optimize your business process, right? Like I think I mentioned in one of my previous video about the persistence level, right? Like how do you make sure that your business processes persistence level is proper okay when you're running things in production, because those are high volume production environment. You shouldn't be like having full persistence in your business process. How you can maybe if there are multiple assigned statements, for example, right? How do you club all them together in one single assigned service, right? So that you don't have to like have multiple steps in doing different assigns. So there are a lot of like ways that you can optimize the business process for better performance, right? So you should be aware of those. There are some default archive and purge processes that runs behind the scenes. You should be aware of those. Like there is if it is a high volume environment, typically like the internal purge okay uh, is not able to catch up with the amount of data that is being processed through the system. So in that respect, you might have to then you will automatically like your database will keep on growing because your purge process is falling behind. So you have to then look into those purge process and see like if you want to switch from internal purge to external purge, which is more robust and runs in a separate JVM and purges more faster than internal purge. So you should be aware of those things, right? So I'm just giving some ideas of like how you would like think through those kind of questions in the STAR methodology and be able to then be very prescriptive and give very concise and to the point responses to the interviewer, right? For making sure you actually cross that finish line and then be able to get that job offer, right? That's kind of the intent, right? The goal is to get the job, right? So we are working backwards from that getting that offer letter, right? And then how you want to prepare yourself for that very day, right? So don't fake it. That's the simple, like uh, like suggestion I would give based on like all the interviews that I have taken in my career. Okay, for developers that joins in different projects, right? So I will easily be able to identify okay if it really worked or not. Like asking few questions, I should be able to like tell you okay you do not have you're just like making up. Okay, you might have worked. Okay, I'm not saying I'm not denying the fact, but you really have just probably worked in some production support. Okay, some basic troubleshooting, right? doesn't know what a business process does in detail, right? You just have a SOP or standard operating procedure, and you follow those step by step process in your like production support. Okay, and that's it, right? You haven't worked on any maps and anything, right? Things like that. So I should be able to quickly catch. Okay, and same thing for other. Like it's just I'm giving an example. Okay, so but don't get disheartened. Okay, I'm here. That's the whole point. Like in my career, I have faced the same challenge when I was put into this kind of EDI project very at the very beginning of my career back in 2007. I was actually like was given training on Java J2E for like 3 months before actually getting an EDI project in IBM because they did not have any Java projects at that time, and there was recession that was going through. So a lot of like my folks like who joined with me in IBM got laid off. Thankfully, I was there, but I got the EDI project. I just grabbed it, but I was very new to this. I learned it, but then when I was learning and I was trying to like catch up, and when I was trying to be an expert in this area, I found that there was very less resources out there for folks like us to understand this technology in much better way. Like if you'll ask, like, oh, I work in Java, work in .NET, I work in this like Python, I work in these different languages and all that. I was not like that, right? So for me, and I realized that they had a lot of resources for them to like kind of catch up. EDI resources were very less. So the whole point of creating this channel is just to share like my small few uh, like nuggets from my experience if it is really helpful to all of you, right? Like that's the whole intent. I hope like I'm able to do some justice, not like entirely. I would say like I still have like there are challenges in respect to infrastructures provisioning and all that. Like wish you all had like a platform that you can really experiment with all the information that you're getting from these videos, but unfortunately the way it is, I'm trying to be like cognizant of that fact and trying to share my screen and be able to show you some of those areas, okay, which you probably won't have access to because of the challenges. Yeah, I hope this was useful. I know you might have a lot of questions around this video. Feel free to put those in comments. And also the new members, please hit the like and share also with your friends and subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell icon for getting notified for similar videos. And with that, I'll say bye for this week and I'll see you next week.